6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
International superstar, Miss Buttabrocka.
You are now tuned in to buttabrocka on Transparency Talks Podcast.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Transparency Talks Podcast. I am your girl, buttabrocka. Listen, we have an amazing show for you today, but before I bring on my special guest, I do want to remind everybody that my new single, Time Stand Still, has just dropped. It dropped on Monday, so make sure that you go and get the song, get my single. The visual will be dropping on the 28th. Also, everybody knows that I just executive produced, directed, and wrote my first film, Finding the Perfect Guy. That will be premiering on April 2nd, and details will follow. So without further ado, she is an award-winning writer, producer, and actress. You've seen her on Sisters, on Saints and Sinners, on The Oval. She's been on a little bit of everything. Can you guys please show some love to Miss Kaye Singleton? Hello, beautiful. How are you?
How are you, gorgeous? I'm happy to be here.
I'm doing good. I'm glad that you're here. I like to dive right on in. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Oh gosh. Well, surprisingly, I was in marketing for a long time before I even got into acting and writing and producing. And so I loved working for luxury liquor brands and building brands and doing different ad campaigns. And then I kind of fell into acting when I did this random audition and got the part. I was terrible. And I was like, you know what? I need to really take some classes. So while I was in LA working with Moet Hennessy, I actually got a chance to take classes at Stella Adler and again a scholarship there and training with Ivana Chubbuck in Los Angeles. So it kind of really ignited the bug. And so I moved back to Atlanta and, went full steam ahead.
Wow. Okay. So you came from the corporate world.
Yes.
And then moved into the acting. Okay. You got your bug from doing a film that you said you was terrible. I'm sure you was good,
Yes.
but you got your bug, your acting bug. Now you lived in Atlanta, but did you move to LA?
Yeah, so I moved to LA for 5 years, but I was
Okay.
still working though in corporate America. I didn't actually start booking on a regular basis until I moved back to Atlanta.
Okay.
So that goes to show you this is the new Black Hollywood over here. You can really do some things. Because while I was out there, I was still, doing events, doing the Grammys, the ESPYs, the film festivals, working with the brand. So yeah, it was when I moved back here is when things really started taking off.
Wow. Okay. And how was it transitioning? Because I left corporate in 2007 to pursue music full time. And it was a big transition to go from the corporate world.
Oh my gosh, I was terrified. I mean, having a regular check and benefits and all these things to come out here and then be on your own, not knowing if you're going to, book the job and having to rely on auditions and having to think of little side hustles you can do. So it was terrifying to quit, but it was necessary as well because you really, especially in this business, you have to give it your all. And especially because I had a short amount of time to reach some goals because, women, we got a little ticking clock. And so I was like, you know what, I got to get into this and just dive head in. And, by the grace of God, it all worked out.
And this is very inspiring because you, just like myself, you bet on yourself and you went for it. And not only did you go for it, but you got the training to make sure that you had the proper tools to do what you needed to do. And I think that's very important. Can you talk on how important it is to study and get the tools that you need?
Absolutely. I think especially if you're coming from outside of this world, you're not nepotized into it, you have to be able to say, hey, I put in the work to get in front of this camera or to get in that writer's room, especially with, and I'll talk about writing in a second. I took 2 years of writing classes here in Atlanta before I even got my first project, before I even did my first short film. And I think doing those classes taught me how to structure, scripts and how to structure film, whether that be for TV or for features. And without that, without those classes and without that structure, those scripts would have never have been as successful as they were and been able to take off. And so the importance of, hey, I want to be taken seriously in this industry as a writer, but live in Atlanta, without the proper training, I wouldn't have been able to do that, right? Because most writers, they live in LA, they go through the writing room system out in Los Angeles, and then that's how they end up, becoming they start as a writer's PA and then a writer's assistant, and then they get in the writer's room, they're a staff writer, and then they're the lead writer, then they're, hopefully the showrunner, and then it's just that there's a strategic path that they normally take. And I went outside of that path and did my own, but it was because of what I learned in classes here that I was able to do that.
Okay. Now I think I jumped all the way to the end part, because I went from writing songs to writing plays to, you know what, I'm going to do my first feature film, and just went for it. But I didn't go the traditional route. And it sounds like you didn't go the traditional route, but you did get the classes. I probably should have got some of the classes. I'm gonna have to make a note for myself.
And don't get me wrong, some people have a natural talent for it. Some people have a natural talent for acting, a natural talent for writing. It just comes from within. I needed that because I was trying to figure out, like, how am I going to do this series, and where did the 5 acts come in, or am I doing a 6-act structure? Or it was a difficult thing to jump into, especially because it was TV. Mm-hmm. And so I needed to have like that discipline. But I say all that to say there are some amazing books out there too that can get you on the right path. So however you get it, whether it be online, whether it be YouTube, whether it be books, whether it be masterclass, however you can get it.
Yeah.
And put it to use.
Absolutely. Which do you like better, writing or acting? Or directing, because you also direct, correct?
Well, I'm learning to love directing more. I'm actually in some classes now, but I think being able to create a world as a writer and see these characters flourish and seeing their arcs and the different tone, just the creative process of it all is something that I can never replace. And so I think right now that's number one, but it may dip back to acting later, and it might dip back to director. So we'll see, but definitely writing right now and just being able to create.
Yeah, I can feel that. It's telling your story, and it's no better feeling than seeing the people that you've chosen, or your cast of your people have chosen for you, to see your characters and everything that you wrote come to life. Tell me about that experience, because you wrote your own project, The Covenant, that got picked up on All Black. I want to talk about that.
Over there.
Right. I want to talk about that experience. I want to talk about, how you came up with the concept, all the other good stuff.
Oh my gosh. Covenant, and I'll say this, was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. And it was a blessing. It was a lot of trials at the same time. And I think it allowed me to mature in a way that I never thought was possible in this business. Now, the journey of it, though, it was beautiful. Did it have some rocky moments? Did it have some times where, I felt like the world was against me? Absolutely. But, and so I'll start from the beginning. So when I first did a project, it was a couple short films, got them in film festivals, The Checklist, and Gaslight was the next one. And I was like, you know what? I think I can do a whole series. So I actually developed 6 different series: a political drama, this one, which is an anthology series, a sports drama, a comedy, a dark comedy. It was a portfolio that I took into this network and, pitched all of them. I was like, I can do every single one of these. And this is, what I want to do. Surprisingly, when I pitched it to All Black, they first chose about 4 that they were interested in. And they were like, okay, send us this 4 and we'll decide what we want to do. And that's why I stick a pen and put a note right there and say, always be overly prepared. Don't just have the one project. What else can you do? Because that might be the next question. Well, what else do you have? So have several things ready to go and queued up. So they took a look at the 4, and ultimately they decided to move forward with Covenant, which was different than anything else that they had on their network at the time, because it is a faith-based anthology series. And so once that got the green light, now you have to write the rest of the season. Because think about it, this was during the pandemic, A, and then B, because I was a first-time showrunner, the budget wasn't that high, so we couldn't even afford a writer's room. So now I had to sit down and write every single episode, which was excruciatingly hard because you have to jump into, 6 different worlds. But it allowed me to grow as a writer as well, to be able to switch gears, to be able to fully cultivate a world, a society, a people, a character, or this or that, and then to switch gears and go into something completely different. So essentially, it was like, I think we shot 4 different stories. Essentially, it was like doing 4 different movies in that time period, and we showed them in 2 parts. And so once we went through the writing process and all the scripts got approved, then you have to actually go to pre-production and principal photography and then post-production. Oh, and then, legal deliverables and all these things. And then you can, have your red carpet and your premiere and all these things. And in the midst of that is when I got the Oval, which was a blessing as well. So it was all in the middle, all at the same time. And I was just trying to keep my head on straight.
Wow. Kudos to you. I have learned now that I am taking a step on the back end of it and seeing the back end. It's a lot of things that you have to do that no one really understands as just an actor, or not just as just an actor, but when you do the back end and you have to do the writing and you have to do all these other things, it gives you a whole different perspective. For sure.
Because I went into it thinking, oh, I'm going to have a writer's room.
Right.
And then when I saw the budget, I was like, oh, well, let me regroup. And then we were also in a pandemic as well. So it was like, okay, sit tight, sit in this house and get it done. And then in the middle of that, doing Sisters and then doing Oval and staying in the bubble on at the studio. It was a roller coaster.
It was a great roller coaster. It
was a blessing. And honestly, without the Oval and all these things, I wouldn't be able to, be sitting where I am today, because it kind of helped the whole process. And so, I'll always be grateful for that.
How many episodes did you ended up having to write?
So we wrote of that particular show, 6 episodes, but we shot 4.
Okay.
Because they were elaborate. They had a lot going on. But and I'll tell you the good news about the last one that we didn't shoot in a second. So we shot 4 of them, split them in half. And that's where you have the 8-episode season, because they were these epic stories that were almost like movies. So we were able to have enough footage to say, okay, each episode averaged around 38 to 40 minutes, even though, and that was a half of one. Gotcha. So they were over an hour each. So yeah, it was, so we shot 4, wrote 6. And then the last one is, I don't even know if I can release this, but just between you and I, there's a movie coming really soon.
Wow.
And I cannot wait. And when I tell you there's some heavy hitters involved and some people that you'll never believe, but it's going to be fire. I can't wait to film it. I can't wait for it to come out. So we're filming in May. Honey, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Some things coming.
I'm excited for you. That's some awesome news. I can't wait to when you officially announce it and when you have your premiere and it airs and everything. I'm very excited for you.
Oh, you'll
Yeah.
be there. I'll send you an invite.
Yes, ma'am. Please do. Okay. So, what was your process of securing your first production deal? I know that you pitched, but when you pitched, what did you have to bring? And did you have to do your pitch deck? Did you have to do your log line? Like what all did you have to bring them?
And so that was a process I had to learn too, right? And so
Mhm.
when I started pitching, I put together a one sheet,
Mm.
which is basically everything about your show, whether it be the log line, the premise, the synopsis, and the genre, and all these things on one sheet. But
Right.
then when you have that second pitch meeting, if they're actually interested in it, and like I said, always have more than one that you're
Mhm.
pitching. When you have that second pitch meeting, then you start talking about your show Bible.
Mm.
And your show Bible is going to have not only the logline, synopsis, premise, all these things, but it's also going to have who are all the lead characters. Let's
Right.
describe them. What does your show look like, not only in season 1, but in season 2 and 3? What's the arc of the seasons? What's the arc
Mm.
of and then fully describe season 1, and then do a full outline of your pilot. And then also let's talk about the tone, and let's talk about the structure, and let's talk about how music will play into it. And so it's really breaking down how your entire series will be, and it can range anywhere from 10 to 50 pages, depends on how much information you want to put in there. And so that was the next step, that I had to have the show Bible done, and the pilot needed to be done and approved. And if once they take a look at your pilot and they take a look at the show Bible, and your once you combine, then they might ask you for an outline as well for the pilot. Not if you actually have the script, but it depends.
Mhm.
But you have to have all those materials ready to go. And
Wow.
because at the time, I was like, well, I don't trust myself to just explain it the way it comes out in my head. So I put together all these elaborate graphics to go with it, all this
Mhm. 'Cause you're
artwork,
a
all this
creative
flow.
visual.
Yes, I was like, this here you go. It can tell its own story.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so they were so busy looking through the artwork and the graphics and the things, that I didn't have to talk about it as much, thankfully. Because at the time I wasn't as comfortable, doing with the spiel. But it all ended up working out. But yes, being fully prepared with all of that information when you're in that room, because the last thing you want to do is to not have it.
Right. Right. I have for my first feature film, I have some meetings coming up. I have the pitch deck and I have a couple other things, but I must admit I am nervous to actually have to go in there. I'm a
It's
visual
nerve
as well, so
wracking.
I prefer that they just look at everything and I just answer a few questions, but I know that I am going to have to speak and everything too, but I'm nervous because it's my first.
Yes, and but that's a good nerve though, because it
Yeah.
actually pushes you to say, okay, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm passionate
Mhm.
about it, so I'm going to make sure that it's good. And
Mhm.
so those are good nerves to have, because you're passionate about it. It's something you want to do, and you're an artist, so it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Absolutely. I did learn that you do need to have, like you had just said, the what's next. So I did thankfully learn that prior to me setting up these meetings that are coming into play. So I do have 6 other concepts ready because I needed to be ready.
Hmm.
Because if you're already ready, you don't have to get ready. So
That's right. And we don't know what they already have in the works. They
yeah.
might have some things that they've been working on that we're not privy to, that might be similar to some other project you have. So just to have some variety is always
Mhm,
good as well.
mhm. How important is it to not get so um what do I want to say? To not take the no so personal.
Oh, I'm still learning. It's as an actor, you have a million no's, right? Because you
Right.
audition all the time, until you get to the point where you don't have to anymore. But it's learning that there's so many different factors that go into why they book actors that have nothing to do with you,
Yep.
whether it be your look, your age, your height, your weight, your whatever, or their cousin had the role already, or they already put out an offer, or this was just a throwaway audition because they needed to have different tapes lined up in case this booking fell through. Like we have no clue what the process is and where they are in it. And so I've had to learn over time to take myself out of it. This is just an opportunity. Don't even look at it as anything else than that, and then throw it away when you're done, because it had nothing to do, 9 times out of 10, it had nothing to do with you and the work that you put into it. But all these other outlying factors you could be too dark, too short, too skinny. It's too many things. It's too many things that you can't control. So I had to learn to just put the best work that I could out there, and then be choosy about which ones that you want to take the time to do, because nothing is worse than feeling like you put so much into something that you really didn't even want to do, and it was a waste of your time. And so be selective about, the things that you put yourself forward to, and know that what God has for you is for you. It's going to happen.
Okay.
It may not happen in the time period you want it to happen, or the way you want it to happen, or not look or wrapped in a bow like you thought it would, but it's going to happen if your faith stays true. So I had to learn that, to take myself out of the equation. Like, it's going to work out. You're going to be good. Whatever didn't happen, wasn't supposed to happen, and keep it pushing.
Absolutely. Great advice. Do you have a favorite role that you've played to date?
Oh my gosh, I'm having a whole lot of fun with Simone right now. But beyond Simone on Oval, it's definitely Serena on Covenant, which was in the first episode, The Promise. I think it was because, and I'll tell you this, I wasn't even supposed to play that role. I hadn't written it for myself. I had a few other actresses in mind, and I was like, okay, we're going to reach out to this one first and offer it to them. And I had all these ideas. And then when I spoke with the VP at the time at All Black, she was saying, well, why don't you play that role? And I was like, first of all, she is supposed to be 45 and I am not 45. And she was like, no, but you can change the age. It's just, you should, be in your project. You should play the role, and you should be in like the premiere. And so I thought about it, and I was like, begrudgingly in a way, I was like, okay, I'll do it, because it wasn't what I saw for myself. But when I tell you, that role allowed me to grow in so many ways, emotionally and spiritually. And it just was, because it does touch on so many subjects that are so near and dear to my heart, as far as infertility, as far as, struggling with a marriage, or struggling to have a child, and where your faith lies. And it was just so many things that it was the fear of, did I wait too long, that I wrote into the script. That was my real fear. And so it came out in a beautiful way. And so that, it always will be the top one, just because it was so close to me.
Okay.
Definitely had a great time. And Josie, when she went crazy on Saints and Sinners. Oh, I love it. That was fun.
How important do you feel it is to have more women and women of color telling their stories?
Oh God, the highest of importance for me. And I'll say that because there's so many times when, especially now that we're getting more into this business, where the people that are making the decisions are 9 times out of 10, they're men. And most of the time they're not men of color. And so they're making the decisions on the stories that we're telling. And no one can tell your story better than you. No one can tell a woman's story better than her. And if we keep putting or allowing men to tell our stories, that's when they become watered down. And the stories, just like life imitates art, art imitates life. And so what people see, that's what they're going to think is true. And so we have to be able to come to the table, to write our stories, to produce our stories as women and women of color, to direct our own stories, to act in, well, obviously we need more Black actresses working, period. And just to we have to be at the forefront. And there's been some amazing women that have been doing that, like Shonda Rhimes, like Mara Brock-Akil, like Ava DuVernay, like Misha Green. And I just want to follow in their footsteps because, Gina Price Blackwood. I don't know. I feel like I'm butchering the name, but she directed The Woman King. It's just so many women, and of course Viola Davis produced it as well, that I look up to and want to keep that going.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I gotta say, I'm truly enjoying this conversation with you, and you are inspiring me even more. You give me the extra fuel, and I'm like, yeah.
The movie, I can't wait to see this movie. It's coming. I know you gotta tell me some more about it and make sure that I can be in the place. But I love to support, especially women writers, as we, try to get more into this mainstream Hollywood business. So
Absolutely.
it's tough out here.
It is. Speaking of tough, when you produced your film and wrote it and everything, now I'm going off of experience with mine. It was very tough because you had a lot of people knowing that I'm a first timer, and you was a first timer with your situation. How did you put your foot down and stand firm on some of your decisions?
That was a process. And I remember shooting the first episode where I didn't want to speak up as much. And it wasn't this episode, but because we shot them out of order. But when we were filming, I didn't want to speak up as much because I didn't want to step on people's toes, or I didn't want to come off as this angry or, attitudinal Black woman, or whatever it was, whatever stereotypes there had been. But realizing later on the power of no, and being able to say that and be steadfast in it and not offer any explanation. I think Courtney Kemp said it best, is when she fully came into her power as a showrunner and, where she was going into her enlightenment period, she realized to be okay with saying no, whether they be to, white men or other executives or whatever, or other producers that may be working on the team, and saying, I stand in this truth of no.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to give you an explanation, and being okay with that. And as the showrunner, like, this isn't right for the story. That's a no, and moving on, and not apologizing for it. So I think learning that power and being okay with my decisions, and not letting someone else second guess my decisions, because nobody knows the story better than you.
Right.
I think that that was a process to get comfortable with, because you get so worried about how does the stereotype look of Black woman, because they put us in a box of, this is, she got an attitude, or she's too emotional, or whatever it is. No, it's not that. It's just, it doesn't work. And be okay with that. And it took me a minute to get to that point, but when I was there, so many things magically happened on screen, because the story, the truth of the story was there unapologetically. So, and sometimes if you know your stuff, you know your stuff. Don't back down on it. Whether that be in marketing, whether that be in film and TV, or whatever industry that you're in, if you know what you're talking about, listen, I got it.
Right.
And being okay with that. It took me a minute, but there's power in that. There's so much power in it.
Okay, so you're doing all these things. You're writing, you're producing, you're directing, you're starring in all of these films and every TV series and different things. How in the world are you balancing it all with your personal life and working?
Oh my God, when I tell you, that's the biggest thing. I'm trying to work. I am a work in progress. And so I have made a commitment this year to take more time for me, because that's what gets lost in the sauce.
Right.
To take more time for me, to take more time with family, with my loved ones, significant others, friends. I want to take the time to do that, because I think we get so caught up in grinding and pushing for this next step, like, okay, there's the next, I got to get to the next level, that we forget to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
And just, self-care is huge. And I'm aware I need to work on that. And so thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Like, what you said you was going to do. So this year I need to focus more on that. And hopefully you'll see some things happen in that area, in that personal area soon too.
Okay. So how do you keep yourself mentally and emotionally fit? Because, this industry is very demanding.
Take time for mental health care, whether that be spiritually, whether that be therapy. I know for me, I spend a lot of time breaking away. I'm a extroverted introvert, so I can be around and be the life of the party and bubbly and hosting and whatever, but I do need time for myself. I
Right.
do need time to get to this quiet place and recharge, because being out and being on stage or on camera, wherever it is, it's draining for me. And I had to realize that you need to take some time for you, for quiet time, for peace, for time with God, for whatever it is, but you need to zen and have that time for yourself, because you can't constantly give.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember I gotten to a point, especially towards the end of Covenant, where I realized I had some PTSD. And it was like I needed to break away for a moment and just be quiet and recharge. And then now I can get back to it. So yes, it's very important that we take time out for ourselves and to take a mental health check to see where we are mentally and emotionally, and make sure we're okay. And if we're not, take the time to get it right. Take time for you.
Okay. Here at Transparency Talks Podcast, I like to get as transparent as possible, because people, I know for me, speaking for myself, they would see me on stage and everything, and they see all the glitz and glams, all the places I've traveled, all this type of stuff, and they don't realize, but there was some trials and tribulations that I had to face along the way. Can you talk about and share how you overcame any of your transparency moments?
I think for me, especially after doing the show, there was some imposter syndrome that set in. Like, are you, even during it, like, are you really supposed to have this opportunity? Are you good enough to pull this off? Are you actually, a showrunner? Whatever it was, whatever these doubts, this imposter syndrome that comes into your head. And now it's like, can you do it again? Can you do something that is highly rated and watched and had great review? Can you do it again all over? Was that just a fluke? And so for me, definitely the fear that comes from that imposter syndrome, where you start self-doubt, I have to make sure I keep that in check, because I do start to wonder, and that is not from God. And you got to know that spirit of fear ain't from him. And so I have to recalibrate and like, no, you're supposed to be here. You've earned it. No matter what anybody else thinks, you earned it.
Right.
So don't let anybody tell you that.
I have to tell myself that daily, because I have my moments. I'm like, what am I doing? You just jumped out of the deep end. What are you doing, chick?
And so that's for me, that's part of that self-doubt when it creeps in. It's just, I'm hoping that that's just a right now, and it's not going to carry into, the future. We supposed to be here. We got it.
We supposed to be here. Absolutely. So what's next for you?
What's next is I'm shooting another show very, very soon. I can't even release the name of it, but we start filming the first week in March. So I'm knee deep in scripts for that. I also, right now, we're finishing up any script revisions for the film, working with an amazing production company and an amazing EP. And that will be the movie, the film, Covenant's first film of the franchise that we will be shooting this summer. We'll be releasing more info about that soon. So I cannot wait to announce it, because Look, the goal is to have it at Martha's Vineyard, but we're going to see.
Okay.
That's in August. So
Okay.
that is, I'm working on all of those things coming up.
Wonderful. Well, I would like to congratulate you on all of your endeavors and wish you, of course, the absolute best.
Thank you.
Sincerely. How can people
Thank
reach
you.
you? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, they can reach me on Instagram at kaye.s. I also have a website for my production company. It's road106films.com. That's road106films.com. You can reach me on there. And there's a contact me page where there's an email. So reach out personally. I'm also on Facebook. So yes, please hit me up. Follow me. Come when we announce these things. Let me know what you think. When we drop these trailers, let me know too. So, and we'll support each other because I want to hear more about this movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do have one more question before we close out the show. Do you work with new writers?
Absolutely. I think, and that's another thing that we're trying to put together with the city of Atlanta. We're trying to put together a writers coalition. So we got to talk more about that. Yes.
Keep me posted.
Yes, I will.
Okay, well, with that, everybody, we are out of here. Again, thank you so much, Kaye Singleton, for being a part of the show. I know that everyone has learned a whole lot from your segment, and thank you for your time. So with that, everybody, we will talk to you guys later.
Thank you.